Hey folks, it's Jeremy, the host of Blammo. Thanks so much for listening. This is a preview of one of our exclusive shows on Patreon. These are member-supported shows, meaning they only happen because of our incredible members and community. So check out a preview of the episode, and if you like it, consider joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/Blammo, where we have tons of exclusive Blammo episodes, shows, our amazing Slack group, and we're adding new things for members all the time. If not, no worries, we still love you, and we literally have hundreds of episodes of Blammo all free for you to dive into. Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Dior Workwear podcast. My name is Derek Guy, and my co-host is Peter Zotello. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that men's silhouettes are filling out again. I think the tide really changed when Raf Simons debuted his independent collection his first independent collection after leaving as the creative director of Dior. That was in the spring of 2016. So when he debuted what was then the fall-winter 2016 collection, he had a bunch of things in there like oversized tennis sweaters, these giant puffer jackets, dress shirts with overly long sleeves. And I think when that happened, it felt like, okay, even though people have been predicting the end of slim fit silhouettes for a while, this was like the moment. And then once J. Crew reintroduced their giant fit chino, which was maybe a couple of years ago, it started to feel like this was really going mainstream. So at the end of March, I wrote an article for Mr. Porter called How to Experiment with the Oversized Look, and include everything from how to layer an oversized top coat, how to wear an oversized sweater without it looking sloppy, how to wear slightly baggier pants, so on and so forth. And Peter and I thought we'd record an episode on exactly that. How to start incorporating a slightly looser fit into your wardrobe if you are still if you've been used to wearing slim fits for a while. So let's dive in.
How are you, Derek? Good to see you.
Great to see you. How you been?
Not too bad. I've got these new glasses that I'm getting used to. I've worn glasses for a long time, but these are my first progressive glasses. I've gotten to the point in my life where I have to wear bifocals, basically.
So progressives is basically bifocals, but without the visible line.
Yes, exactly. So it's such that when you are reading something up close, you almost have to tilt your head up.
Yeah.
And look disparagingly at the minions.
You're turning into one of those old Italian tailors that's like really well dressed, but also does the whole like,
yeah.
You know how they like tilt their head down when like you come into the workshop, they tilt their head down, look up at you. Right. And then when they look at something, they tilt their head up and like stare down at the paper.
Yeah.
You're turning into that dude. I have separate reading glasses and then my normal glasses.
But don't you lose them?
That's the thing is my optometrist said, are you interested in bifocals or progressive lenses? And then I just thought like, I don't know. I think the lenses are like, I don't know, with my insurance, it's like 100 or 150 or something. It's not crazy, but it's, it's like, it's $150.
It's an expense.
It's an expense. And then I was like, well, then if I put them on and if I get dizzy, then I would have wasted the $150 because like, then I'm just like stuck with this issue.
Right.
Whereas I know I can deal with reading glasses. But the thing about reading glasses is that I find that I place them, I'm always like running around my home to fetch them because,
right.
Like you bring them to one part of the room, you take them off and then you go about your day and then you sit down somewhere else and you need to get your reading glasses.
You're turning into one of those people that have 5 pairs of reading glasses, gets them at Walgreens and says, well, I might as well get these. They're 99 cents.
Yeah, that's the thing. So then I've thought about, well, maybe I need another pair of reading glasses, but maybe I'll just get progressives. I haven't thought about whether or not putting those on makes you dizzy. Like I haven't, because you don't know until you try them on.
They did say that it would take about 2 weeks, and it is a little dizzying. It doesn't help that I also made these photosensitive, so they turn darker, so I can use them as sunnies as well.
Man, you've got like, those are like robo glasses.
They are.
Where are the frames from?
These are from Dita, my first Dita frames, and also my first pair of titanium frames, and they're fantastic. You have a pair of...
Yeah, I love Dita. They're so good.
I don't even feel them on. They're amazing.
They're super lightweight, and then it's hard to describe until you hold them in your hand, but they just feel sturdier, but also somehow lightweight. And when you compare them to other eyewear frames, they just, I don't know, they feel more... It's such a corny word, but they feel more crafted. I don't know.
They look good.
Thanks. Yeah. I recently wrote an article for Mr. Porter about how to wear oversized fits, which is, it's funny. Mr. Porter published this, they did their whole like social media campaign, like here's this new article or whatever. And someone on, it was like a stab through my heart. Someone on Instagram was like, doesn't that guy only talk about like classic suits? And I was like, man, I'd like to think I have a little bit more
You're
range.
pigeonholed.
I'm pigeonholed, but whatever. But yeah, I wrote an article for Mr. Porter about how to wear oversized fits.
I will say Derek is completely naked in front of me right now. He's not. He's fully clothed in classic menswear.
Thank you.
But I have seen you in many things. I've seen you in workwear. I've seen you in oversized fits. I will say to those of you that don't know Derek, he is, similar to myself, a man who appreciates many silhouettes, but obviously has a fondness for classic menswear.
Yeah. But it is kind of the thing, because I think people have been predicting, or even sometimes hoping for, the death of slim fit silhouettes. I've seen that like trickle online.
Forever, 10 years.
Yeah, like over 10 years. And it didn't really feel real to me until Raf Simons debuted I think it was his fall winter. It was his first collection after he left Dior, if I remember correctly. And I think it might have been fall winter 2016. I could be wrong on those dates.
Yeah, that's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. And when he debuted that collection, I was like, okay, now this is happening. Because for a long time, people have been saying, oh, it's going to end soon. It's going to end soon. And then when Raf did that collection, I was like, oh, this is a real shift, because that collection was full of like oversized tennis sweaters. They had these like giant parkas. Rihanna showed up on the street wearing a giant parka, which was both celebrated, but then also turned into like a meme online where people would be like blowing up, making clothes even more oversized and making jokes online. And that to me was like, it's really starting. And then when J. Crew released their giant chino, which I think was maybe 2019, I was like, oh, well, this is like,
if it's in J. Crew,
it's like, yeah, this is like, we're really like going full into this at this point. We may be so far into it, frankly, that like people on the bleeding edge might be like going back into slim fit, but I don't know.
All right, we're going to go back to slim fit with stacks.
Yeah. So I wrote this article about how to experiment with it if people are interested in experimenting with different silhouettes. You can find it on Mr. Porter if you just Google, I don't know, like oversized, silhouettes, Mr. Porter or something.
You did a really good compare and contrast on Twitter with Mickey Mouse and his nemesis.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think, what's that mouse's name? Mortimer, I think?
Mortimer Mouse.
Yeah, Mortimer Mouse. So Mortimer Mouse wore these like giant, I guess you'd compare them to like Oxford bags, like historically. He wore these like giant pants.
Stovepipe pants that just went straight down.
Yeah, they're huge. And, but the silhouette became like a joke online years ago because they looked almost exactly like pants that Harry Styles wore in a couple of photos. But yeah, I think pants, for example, is a really easy way to do it. La Mer does really amazing looser fitting trousers. And I think the thing that makes La Mer's trousers, I may have mentioned this in other episodes, but I think the thing that makes his trousers easier to wear is because some of them have a distinguishable silhouette. They're not just big. It's not like you can just buy your regular pants and then size up 10 and it's the same silhouette. Like he cuts some of his trousers with the outseam twisting towards the center of your shoe, which then brings the volume from your hips towards the center of your shoe and gives you kind of like a balloon shape. If people Google
La Mer twisted pants, I know because I've Googled that.
if you do La Mer twisted pants, you'll bring up the product. But then if you search for it on TikTok, you'll get a bunch of people showing how they look in outfits.
Oh,
and then you'll also see how they move.
Nice.
And that's kind of the thing of all of these oversized fits, is that you allow the fabric to move a little bit more.
Right.
And sometimes that doesn't really come across in photos, but it comes across when you're trying stuff on in store, or if you buy something and you get it delivered to your home or something. It does sort of depend on the fabric.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
Cotton does not move as much as like a wool, or like, especially like a wool twill. If you can find like a wool twill, those move really, really nice.
Yeah, like a gabardine.
Like those are very silky and smooth. A plain weave is fine, but if you get into like heavy denim, for example, it's not going to move like gabardine, for example.
No, I was thinking about that because I remember in the 90s when everything was big, and a buddy of mine throughout the decades has held on to his basketball player size suits And ironically now, 20 years later, 30 years later, they're coming back in style. 4-button, long.
Whoa.
Yeah, the guy.
NBA draft style.
Telling you, he stayed the course. I'm so proud of him. And the funny thing is, he is not a stylish guy. He just keeps wearing the same stuff. And good for him. He saves a lot more money than I do.
Yeah.
But those fit in your waist and they were wool and they had a really good drape to them. But jeans don't do that. So you can buy baggy jeans, but they will not have the same kind of drape. Cotton, like you said, just does not have that same kind of drape. So you can buy them. You can buy a cotton polyester mix trench coat, which is very common and has been common forever. You can buy pure wool gabardine trench coats, but they're a little more expensive and arguably impossible to find. You can, but the cotton polyester mix, because it's more water resistant, is much more common. And those have a really nice drape to them. Those have a fantastic drape. Many companies make those now.
I recently did this thread on Twitter that really like encapsulated some things I've been thinking of why is it that, I mean, I'm not like a kind of like return to the past kind of guy where I think everything in the past was better. But I do think, to be honest, that the average person in the past was more stylish.
Yeah.
The average person. That doesn't mean that like, you know, the best, I still think there are amazingly stylish people now. If you're talking about the average person on the street, I think in the past people dress better. And I think part of that, I did this thread about how I think it's because fashions in the past had more shape and drape, meaning that if you look at the outfits, there were distinguishable shapes to the outfits. And for men, if that's a tailored jacket, that'd be like a V-shaped silhouette for the jacket. But if it's casual wear, like if, you know, I've mentioned before, Robert Frank, his book, The Americans, when you look at Robert Frank's photos of mid-century America, there are a lot of people who did not wear tailored jackets, but they still looked super stylish because you'd see people in like bomber jackets and they were like actual military surplus bomber jackets,
right,
which had a short rounded silhouette. Like the body was rounded and it was cropped and the body was rounded and the sleeves were full, which gave this very kind of like round look up top, which they paired with fuller trousers. And to me, that's just like, it's just it may not work on every single body type and it may not work for everyone's taste, but it gives you a distinguishable silhouette versus if you look at brands like APC, their bomber jackets, like if you look at an APC bomber jacket, and if you look at like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I don't want to like slander J. Crew, but just off the top of my head, like if you think of like J. Crew or Gap or whatever, if you look at their chore coats, and then if you look at, I don't know, maybe like Uniqlo or, you know, any kind of like mainstream top coat, all of these outerwear options have essentially the same silhouette. The shoulder seam ends at the shoulder joints, the body's trim, and then the jackets all either hit around just under where your waistband ends, or if it's a top coat, it's like thigh length, which is only like, I don't know, like 6-8 inches longer.
Right.
So it's all this rectangular silhouette. And then, you know, of course, narrow sleeves, which is fine. Those also can be really great silhouettes. But through that, you've taken away so much variation that could be possible in the shapes of clothes. And then when you see the average guy on the street, he's either wearing that silhouette or he's not wearing a jacket at all, which if you're not wearing a jacket at all, then, and if you're just wearing like a t-shirt or a dress shirt, then most of the time that dress shirt or t-shirt is like whatever is the shape of your body.
Right.
You know, cause there's only so much you can do with those kind of clothes. So oversized silhouettes to some degree is almost just like paying attention to the shape and drape of your clothing, to think of your clothes as a silhouette, as it can be defined by a different shape. That's not just the shape of your body. And then also drape of like watching how the fabric hangs and moves as you move around. And that's you bought that recent Burberry raincoat, which, you know, has like a lot of fluid movement when you move around.
I think back in the day, clothes were more architectural.
Yeah.
And the only clothes that were form-fitting were swimsuits because they needed to be. Everything else was, let's see if we can flatter the body. Let's see if we can make this architectural. Let's bring some shape to these clothes because let's just be honest. Not that I am into shaming people, but most bodies are not that interesting. They can be, and they should be celebrated for being beautiful bodies because everyone has a beautiful body. However, if you can use clothes to give something an interesting shape, then why not?
Yeah.
And you also give yourself the opportunity to try different shapes with clothes. Interestingly enough, in the 90s, I think you can learn something about how to pair oversized clothes because back then, if you wore big pants, you would wear a smaller size or a more cropped top. You can do oversized everything. I did when I was a skater. I wore oversized. I wore XL everything. I wore size 40 pants because that was the largest they would make. And then I would cinch it tight with a woven belt. But if you look at Esquire or GQ from that time, they would tell you if you are going to get something that is oversized, or if you're going to wear pants that have a stovepipe leg, Armani was really good about this. He would either pair it with a shorter top that's slightly slimmer and with a higher waist. So you have this really nice drapey leg, and the top would have a little bit of a dropped seam on the shoulder. So you would give yourself that V shape, and I know this is going to make some people gasp and clutch their pearls, but they would tuck in their sweaters. Because, not all of them, but they would often tuck in their sweaters because that would give you that V shape.
Yeah.
And you would have a narrow waist because it would be cinched in the waist. Of course, you can take that to the extreme like anything. You can take slim fit to the extreme. You can take oversized to the extreme as well. But that was one of their recommendations that I never forgot, because if you wear something like that, it would give you that V shape. It would give you a rounder shape around your shoulders. And then when your belt is tied around pants that are slightly higher at the narrowest part of your waist, then it would give you that shape.
Scott Fraser Simpson does that silhouette really well.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. I mean, I know we said this before in other pods, but I find, when you describe that silhouette, I just think of a lot of women's wear. There's an Instagram account that I love called, I think it's, if I remember correctly, I'd have to pull it up, but I believe it's Ladies of Madison Avenue. I think that's the actual name. But if you Google Ladies of Madison Avenue Instagram, it will pull up the actual account. And they recently showed some women at the Dior show, and a few women wore that silhouette. And yeah, I mean, many of the idea of shape and drape is so obvious in women's wear because there's just so many more options. Like if you go to J. Crew and look at the women's section for jeans and look at the shapes available for women's jeans.
Oh, I mean, many.
Yeah. And then if you go to the men's section and you go to jeans, they're basically like three variations of essentially the same cut.
Right.
But yeah, when you describe that silhouette, I just think of a lot of women's wear, and that can still be transplanted to a lot of men's wear. When you look at Scott Fraser Simpson, he does that very full, kind of drapey leg, and then which he pairs with a smaller top.
Yeah. Or a top that's tucked in, or a roomier top with maybe a tank top underneath, and then he'll tuck in the pants. So that way you have a sleeve that comes out a little bit, again, giving you a little bit of width around your shoulders, and then it's tucked in or left open, but you have a t-shirt or a tank top underneath, and then higher waist pants with a nice full leg, and that gives so much shape and drape.
An example that I gave in my article of saying easy starting points is trousers, which we talked about.
Where are some places where people can get trousers? We mentioned Le Maire. I can also recommend some places. J. Crew does the giant fit. I think they are doing a giant fit khaki, which is nice.
Right, the giant chino.
Mm-hmm.
O'Connell's, if for a classic tailored look, does a fuller trouser.
Oh yeah, you mentioned our buddy in New York has a pair of those pants.
David Lane.
Yeah, those looked fantastic on him.
Who else does them really well? Part of the problem is that we're talking about fashion collections which change by season, but I've seen really good wide fits from Tomorrowland. It's a brand based in Japan.
Where can you buy those? Zen Market? Can you buy direct from them?
I mean, that's kind of the problem. I used to see it at Union Made, but they closed.
Right.
Who else does a really good wide leg? I want to say some of those Italian brands, Como. I don't know if Comoli, is that the brand that is now at No Man Walks Alone? I think they might have a wide leg.
Oh, really? Oh, I do know, yes, that Rhoda does a higher waist, wider leg. I believe they call it either the Brooklyn or the Manhattan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They have a nice higher rise with either a single or a double pleat with a nice full leg, but still very tailored. So it doesn't look very fashion forward. It looks more classic.
if someone is looking for a budget option, you're not going to get like the super fluid gabardines and like fine wools, but Uniqlo's U collection, which is designed by Le Mer, often does a kind of toned down version of a Le Mer cut in a more affordable fabric like cotton. And that can be a good way. I think Uniqlo used pants might be, don't quote me, but like it's around like maybe $7,500.
Oh, okay.
Some around there. So it's like reasonably affordable. I mean, some of the obvious choices for an easy wide leg is workwear pants.
Yes.
So because like actual historical, like when I tried on looser fitting fatigues, and it's not that I'm against slim fit fatigues, but me personally, I could not go back to slim fit fatigues.
Oh, because the normal fit is so much more comfortable.
Yeah, it's just much more comfortable, and it just looks, to me, it looks better.
Carhartt.
Yeah, like when you like a lot of actual workwear is fuller fitting because.
Want to hear the rest? Listen to the full episode and many more other exclusive episodes over on our Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Blamo to sign up and join the Blam fam. You also get access to our exclusive members-only Slack group where we chat about this and a ton of other things. So head over to patreon.com/Blamo and we'll see you there.